Belgian Cenotaph Parade AT Horse Guards. Horse Guards, Royal Guard, King's Guard, Horse, London. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden hue over the historic buildings that lined Whitehall. Among these structures, the grand expanse of Horse Guards Parade stood out, its wide open square already coming alive with quiet anticipation. Tourists and locals alike were beginning to gather along the barriers, their eyes filled with curiosity and reverence. Cameras clicked sporadically, and the occasional murmur of conversation rippled through the crowd, but there was a sense of calm, a feeling that something important was about to happen. Among the visitors was Daniel, a history enthusiast and amateur photographer who had traveled all the way from Belgium. He had always been fascinated by military traditions and ceremonies, and when he learned that the Belgian Cenotaph Parade would be held at Horse Guards that day, he knew he could not miss it. He had woken up earlier than usual, his heart pounding with excitement. Today was more than a sightseeing trip. It was a chance to witness history being honored and to feel the deep respect shared between nations. As he approached the square, he was struck by the grandeur of the scene. Horse Guards Parade was enormous, its vast open ground lined with flags fluttering in the gentle morning breeze. Union Jacks mingled with the Belgian national flag, signaling a moment of unity and remembrance. The barriers were already filled with eager spectators, some craning their necks to get a better view, others quietly talking about the significance of the event. Daniel carefully found a spot near the front, setting down his camera bag and adjusting his lens. The atmosphere was unique. It was not festive, yet there was a quiet energy in the air. Children perched on their parents' shoulders, and elderly veterans stood proudly, some in uniform, some wearing medals that reflected years of service and sacrifice. The morning air carried the faint scent of leather from polished boots and saddles, mingled with the crisp, earthy aroma of the stone and grass surrounding the parade ground. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of excitement and respect. Moments later, a low hum began to rise from the crowd as the first movements of the parade came into view. The mounted soldiers appeared, their horses glinting under the morning sun. Each horse was perfectly groomed, their coats shining as if polished with care. The soldiers, dressed in their ceremonial uniforms, sat tall and straight in their saddles, their faces calm but focused. Daniel's eyes widened as he noticed the precision of their movements, the way each rider mirrored the other, their horses stepping in perfect unison, hooves striking the ground in a rhythmic pattern that seemed almost musical. He could not help but be drawn into the moment. The soldiers moved with a grace and discipline that spoke of years of training and dedication. Their swords caught the sunlight, reflecting brief flashes of light across the parade ground. As they passed by, Daniel could see the subtle but meaningful details. The medals on their chests, the polished boots, the carefully braided reins of the horses. Each element, though small on its own, contributed to a larger picture of tradition, pride, and honor. The crowd watched in silence, broken only by occasional applause and the clicking of cameras. Daniel, too, focused intently, adjusting his lens to capture the perfect shot. But more than photography, he felt a deep emotional connection to the scene. He remembered the stories his grandfather had told him about the Great War, about soldiers who had traveled far from home to protect others, and who had often paid the ultimate price. Seeing the Belgian contingent marching in London, he realized that the sacrifices of the past were being remembered not just in Belgium, but across borders, and that the bonds formed through shared history were still strong. As the parade progressed, Daniel noticed the care taken to involve the audience in the ceremony. A young soldier paused briefly to let a child wave at him, giving a small nod in return. An elderly veteran, standing with a walking cane, saluted with trembling hands as the procession passed by. Daniel could see the pride and emotion in their eyes. For him, it was a lesson in humility, the reminder that behind every uniform, behind every ceremony, there were real people with real stories of courage, perseverance, and sacrifice. The sound of the horses' hooves striking the stone ground created a rhythm that seemed to echo through the centuries. Daniel could almost hear the whispers of history, faint but persistent, as if the past was speaking directly to the present. The ceremonial drums began to roll, their deep, resonant beats filling the square and adding a sense of drama and solemnity to the parade. The bugle notes rang out, high and clear, carrying melodies that were at once mournful and proud. Daniel shivered slightly, not from the cold, but from the emotional weight of the moment. He turned his attention to the Belgian veterans walking alongside the mounted soldiers. Many were elderly, their faces lined with experience and age, yet their posture remained proud. Each step they took was a tribute to comrades lost long ago, and Daniel could see the mix of pride, sorrow, and remembrance etched in their expressions. Some of them carried small flags or flowers, quietly paying homage to those who had served before them. The sense of continuity, the passing of memory from one generation to the next, was palpable. Daniel also observed the subtle ways in which the ceremony was organized to maintain dignity and respect. Officers gave precise signals, guiding the formations with practiced gestures. Horses responded instantly, their movements perfectly timed with their riders. The entire scene, while formal, felt alive and dynamic, as if every participant, soldier, horse, veteran, or spectator, was contributing to a single shared purpose. Daniel felt lucky to witness this harmony in action, understanding that it was more than a parade. It was a living tribute. Time seemed to stretch as the parade continued. Daniel noticed families capturing memories on their phones, friends quietly discussing the significance of the event, and even some tourists who had stumbled upon the scene, now standing respectfully in silence. He realized that, in moments like this, people from different walks of life could come together in shared reverence. The parade was a reminder of unity, not just between nations, but between generations, and it resonated deeply with him. After what felt like both a long and a short time, the first segment of the parade reached the far end of the square. The soldiers reformed their lines, horses prancing gently, and the crowd erupted into polite applause. Daniel lowered his camera for a moment, simply taking in the scene with his eyes. He felt a sense of calm mixed with exhilaration. This was more than he had imagined. The reality of the parade exceeded every expectation he had carried with him from Belgium. As he looked around, Daniel noticed that the Belgian flag, raised proudly above the formation, seemed to flutter in perfect rhythm with the beat of the drums. The symbolism was not lost on him. The presence of Belgium in this historic London square, the participation of veterans, and the careful attention to detail all spoke to the enduring friendship and shared history between nations. He thought about the countless untold stories of bravery and sacrifice, and he felt a sense of responsibility to honor them, even in his own small way, by documenting the moment and sharing it with others. By the time the morning sun had climbed higher in the sky, casting brighter light across the parade ground, Daniel realized that he had been standing for nearly 2 hours. His fingers ached from holding the camera, and his toes were cold despite his boots, but none of that mattered. Every sense was alive. The sight of polished uniforms, the sound of hooves and drums, the smell of leather and earth, and the taste of crisp winter air mixed with anticipation. It was a sensory experience unlike any other, and Daniel knew that he would carry it in his memory forever. As the parade paused briefly to allow the next segment to form, Daniel took a seat on a nearby bench, reviewing the photos he had already taken. Each image captured more than just a scene. It captured emotion, tradition, and the weight of history. He smiled to himself, realizing that this was the beginning of a story he could tell, one that would bring viewers, readers, or listeners into the heart of the Belgian Cenotaph parade at Horse Guards. He knew that this was only the start, that the next stages of the parade would offer even more drama, emotion, and unforgettable moments. In that quiet pause, as horses stamped gently and soldiers adjusted their formations, Daniel reflected on why he had traveled so far. It was not just for photography or for sightseeing or even for curiosity. It was for understanding, to witness history, to feel it, and to recognize the sacrifices and traditions that had shaped the world he lived in. He realized that the Belgian Cenotaph parade was more than a ceremonial event. It was a bridge between past and present, a lesson in dignity, respect, and humanity. With renewed anticipation, Daniel rose to his feet, adjusting his camera strap and focusing on the next formation approaching. The morning light glinted off the medals of the soldiers and the reins of the horses, and he felt a deep sense of excitement for what was about to unfold. He was ready to capture it all, to witness every detail, and to honor the memory of those who had served before. As the next segment of the parade moved into view, Daniel felt a quiet thrill. the kind that only comes when one is truly in the right place at the right time, experiencing history firsthand. And so, standing there in the heart of London, surrounded by flags, horses, and the disciplined march of soldiers, Daniel became not just a spectator, but a part of the story itself, a story of respect, remembrance, and the timeless connection between nations and people. As the morning progressed, the Belgian Cenotaph parade at Horse Guards grew more intense and captivating. Daniel remained near the front, his camera at the ready, fully aware that the next segment of the parade would reveal even more of the precision, discipline, and emotion that had already begun to mesmerize him. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the entire square itself understood the importance of the moment. The crowd, too, seemed to sense that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The soldiers moved with impeccable timing, their boots striking the ground in perfect unison. Each horse responded to subtle commands from its rider, prancing with grace and power, their hooves echoing across the parade ground. The rhythmic sound created a heartbeat for the ceremony, drawing spectators into the flow of the event. Daniel marveled at the synchronization. It was clear that countless hours of training and dedication had brought the soldiers and their horses to this level of perfection. The Belgian contingent advanced into view, their uniforms crisp and polished, reflecting the pride of their nation. Each soldier carried himself with dignity, embodying both strength and humility. Daniel's attention was drawn to a young soldier at the front of the formation. Though he was clearly nervous, the soldier maintained perfect posture, his eyes fixed straight ahead, his every movement precise. Daniel couldn't help but feel admiration for the discipline required to stand, ride, and march in such a ceremonious event. Around him, the crowd reacted in a mix of awe and quiet respect. Children pointed at the horses, some whispering excitedly to their parents. Elderly spectators, many veterans themselves, stood stoically, their expressions reflecting memories of their own experiences. Daniel noticed a man with several medals pinned to his jacket. He appeared lost in thought, perhaps remembering comrades long gone or reflecting on his own service. The weight of history was tangible here, and Daniel felt humbled by the realization that these parades were more than ceremonies. They were living tributes to courage and sacrifice. The parade continued with a series of intricate formations. Horses moved in precise circles, lines converged and split with flawless timing, and soldiers maintained perfect spacing as they executed each maneuver. The visual spectacle was mesmerizing, but Daniel was equally captivated by the subtle human moments. He noticed a soldier adjusting the stirrup of a fellow rider who had faltered slightly, a gesture of camaraderie and teamwork. These small acts, almost invisible to many in the crowd, spoke volumes about the dedication and care shared among the soldiers. The sound of drums and bugles intensified, filling the square with a sense of drama and ceremony. Daniel could feel the vibrations through the ground, as if the parade itself had a pulse. The music was carefully timed to match the movements of the horses and soldiers, creating a seamless blend of sound and motion. He observed how the drummers maintained unwavering focus, their arms moving in rhythm, their expressions a mixture of concentration and pride. The buglers, standing tall with their instruments raised, added another layer of solemnity and tradition. As the parade progressed, Daniel began to notice the reactions of the crowd more closely. A young boy, perhaps no older than 8, mimicked the movements of the soldiers with his tiny hands, a wide smile spreading across his face. Beside him, his mother encouraged him softly, whispering explanations about the ceremony. An elderly couple held hands tightly, their eyes glistening as they watched the veterans pass by. Daniel realized that the parade was touching each person differently, some with awe, others with nostalgia, and many with deep, reflective respect. The Belgian veterans walking alongside the soldiers became a focal point for Daniel. He could see the pride in their faces, but also a quiet sorrow. These men and women had lived through experiences most could only imagine. Some bore scars, others walked with canes, but all carried themselves with dignity. They nodded respectfully to the crowd, acknowledging their presence without breaking the solemnity of the event. Daniel felt a deep connection to them, imagining the stories behind each medal, each step, and each salute. Suddenly, a small commotion caught his attention. A horse, slightly nervous, had shifted its footing near the edge of the formation. One of the riders quickly and calmly corrected the horse's position, guiding it back into line with subtle rein movements. The crowd held its breath for a moment, appreciating the skill and calmness of the rider. Daniel snapped a series of photographs, capturing the precise moment of control and poise. It was a reminder that, while the parade appeared flawless, it required constant attention, trust between rider and horse, and immense skill. As the procession continued, Daniel noticed the flags fluttering high above the formations. The Belgian flag, bright and proud, moved gently in the breeze alongside the Union Jack. Each flag symbolized history, honor, and unity, representing the shared remembrance of sacrifice between nations. Daniel reflected on how small gestures, like the careful raising of a flag, could carry profound meaning, bridging the gap between past and present. The parade also included moments of personal connection. Soldiers occasionally paused to acknowledge the spectators, offering small gestures of kindness and respect. A soldier bent slightly to shake hands with a young child who had stepped forward under the watchful eyes of his parents. An elderly veteran offered a nod and a smile to an audience member who had served in a different regiment. These small interactions reminded Daniel that ceremonies were not only about tradition, but also about human connection, empathy, and shared respect. Throughout the parade, Daniel found himself increasingly absorbed by the emotional landscape around him. Each drumbeat, each precise movement, and each respectful gesture reinforced the significance of the event. He could feel the dedication of every soldier and veteran, the pride of the Belgian delegation, and the reverence of the crowd. The parade was not merely a display. It was a conversation between generations, a dialogue in which honor, memory, and respect were the common language. Daniel's thoughts wandered to the countless individuals who had served in wars, conflicts, and missions long before him. He considered the bravery it took to leave home and family for a cause greater than oneself. He thought about the camaraderie shared among soldiers, the bonds forged in difficult circumstances, and the resilience required to face adversity. Standing there at Horse Guards Parade, he felt a profound gratitude for the sacrifices that had shaped the freedoms and peace enjoyed today. Time passed, and the parade shifted into another segment. Soldiers formed intricate patterns, horses moved in graceful arcs, and the sound of drums and bugles continued to guide the ceremony. Daniel continued photographing every detail, but he also paused frequently to simply observe. The expressions on the faces of the veterans, the precise movements of the soldiers, the beauty of the horses in motion, all of it combined to create an unforgettable experience. Daniel noticed a particularly moving scene. A veteran, perhaps in his 70s, walked slowly along the parade route, holding a small Belgian flag. His movements were deliberate, and his eyes held a faraway look, as though he were remembering a time long past. Daniel felt a lump in his throat, recognizing the depth of memory and emotion carried by that single figure. It was a reminder that history is not just recorded in books or photographs, but lived in the hearts of those who experienced it. The afternoon sun climbed higher, casting warmer light across the parade ground. Daniel could see every detail more clearly: the shimmer of metals, the shine of polished boots, the delicate movements of the horses' hooves. He felt a sense of awe at the care and precision involved in maintaining such a ceremony. Every step, every gesture, every sound was deliberate, forming a tapestry of history and tradition that resonated deeply with all who were present. The crowd's reactions grew more animated as the parade reached its peak. Applause rose at appropriate moments, and occasional cheers punctuated the solemnity. Children waved small flags, veterans saluted, and families took photographs to capture memories that would last a lifetime. Daniel observed that the parade was not only a tribute to the past, but also an educational moment for the younger generation, a chance for them to witness and understand the value of discipline, respect, and remembrance. As the parade began to slow and approach its next transition, Daniel took a deep breath. The experience so far had been immersive, emotional, and inspiring. He realized that what made the Belgian Cenotaph parade truly remarkable was not just the visual spectacle or the precise formations, but the human stories behind every movement, every salute, and every hoofbeat. Each soldier, each veteran, and even each member of the crowd contributed to a shared sense of respect and honor. Daniel lowered his camera for a moment, allowing himself to simply absorb the atmosphere. The energy of the crowd, the proud movements of the soldiers, the rhythmic beats of drums, and the presence of the Belgian and British flags all combined to create a moment of unity that transcended nationality. He felt a quiet pride in being able to witness it firsthand, and he knew that these memories would remain with him long after the day ended. As the segment of the parade concluded and the soldiers prepared for the next formation, Daniel reflected on what he had seen. The precision, the dedication, and the emotion displayed had left a lasting impression. He recognized that parades like this were not mere ceremonies. They were living reminders of history, honoring those who had served, educating those who watched, and connecting people across generations and nations. With renewed anticipation, Daniel adjusted his camera and prepared to follow the next stage of the parade. He knew that there was still much to witness, more formations, more interactions, and more moments of quiet reflection. The day was far from over, and he was determined to experience every part of it, capturing not only images but also the spirit and significance of the Belgian Cenotaph parade at Horse Guards. Standing once more at the front of the crowd, Daniel felt a deep sense of purpose. He was no longer just a tourist or an observer. He was a witness to history, a participant in a shared moment of respect and remembrance. As the next formation began to move forward, he focused his lens, ready to capture the stories, the emotions, and the timeless connection between past and present. And so the parade continued, each step, each beat, and each salute reinforcing the significance of the day, leaving Daniel inspired, humbled, and more deeply connected to the history he had come to witness. The parade had been unfolding for hours, yet Daniel felt as if he had been transported to another world. The Horse Guards parade ground, with its vast open space and historic surroundings, seemed alive with every step of the horses and every movement of the soldiers. The Belgian Cenotaph parade was reaching a new phase, and Daniel could sense that the most meaningful moments were still to come. The crowd, too, seemed to understand that something significant was approaching, their anticipation visible in their quiet but attentive expressions. Daniel noticed that the rhythm of the parade had shifted slightly. The precision and discipline of the soldiers were now accompanied by moments of personal interaction that drew the audience even closer into the ceremony. A group of Belgian veterans, walking slowly and deliberately, moved toward the center of the square. Each step they took seemed heavy with history, yet light with pride. Daniel watched as some veterans paused to nod to familiar faces in the crowd, offering brief smiles of connection. It was a reminder that behind the ceremonial uniform and formal gestures were human beings, each carrying memories and emotions that were impossible to fully capture. The horses, too, seemed to sense the growing significance of the moment. They moved with a calm but deliberate pace, their hooves striking the ground in perfect unison. Daniel could see the muscles of each animal ripple under its polished coat, the careful way they responded to the slightest movement of the reins. There was a remarkable harmony between horse and rider, a silent communication that spoke of trust and understanding built over countless hours of training. As he focused his camera, Daniel realized that this connection was at the heart of every successful parade. It was not just discipline, it was a bond, a partnership that allowed the ceremony to unfold flawlessly. The sound of the drums and bugles became more profound as the parade progressed. Daniel could feel the vibrations in his chest, each beat echoing the rhythm of history itself. The drum rolls were steady, measured, and commanding, while the bugle's notes soared above the crowd, carrying a mixture of solemnity and pride. He noticed that the musicians, though partially in the background, were just as focused and precise as the soldiers on horseback. Each note they played had weight, each pause in the music carefully timed to maintain the flow and emotion of the ceremony. A particularly moving moment came when a young soldier, no older than Daniel's younger brother might be, approached the front of the formation. He paused to salute an elderly Belgian veteran who had been standing quietly near the barriers. The veteran returned the salute with a trembling hand, and for a brief instant, the past and present seemed to merge. Daniel's heart stirred as he captured the moment on camera. He felt a deep connection to the story unfolding before him, understanding that history was not just remembered, it was honored, witnessed, and passed forward. Around him, the crowd reacted in waves of quiet emotion. Some wiped away tears, Others held their children close, and many stood in respectful silence. Daniel observed that these reactions were not just responses to a ceremonial display, but to the human stories embedded within it. The veterans, the soldiers, and even the horses all carried a message. That bravery, sacrifice, and loyalty were timeless virtues that deserved recognition. He felt grateful to witness such an authentic display of respect and remembrance. As the parade continued, Daniel noticed small yet powerful details that could easily be overlooked. A soldier helped a fellow rider adjust a strap that had loosened, ensuring that the formation remained perfect. A horse nuzzled gently at the hand of its rider, a small sign of trust and reassurance. Veterans whispered quietly among themselves, sharing memories or offering encouragement. These subtle interactions revealed that the parade was not just about public display. It was a living, breathing network of respect, care, and shared history. The next segment of the parade brought the Belgian flag to the forefront. Carried proudly by a young officer, the flag moved with dignity, its colors vibrant against the morning light. The crowd responded with respectful murmurs and occasional applause. Daniel focused on the officer's determined expression, noticing the mixture of pride, responsibility, and reverence. He understood that the flag was not merely a symbol. It was a representation of the courage, struggles, and resilience of an entire nation. Each fold and flutter of the fabric carried the weight of history, and Daniel felt honored to witness it in motion. Suddenly, a powerful moment of connection occurred. One of the horses, guided by a veteran rider, approached the edge of the parade square where children were leaning over the barriers. The horse lowered its head slightly, and a small child reached out to touch its nose. The rider smiled warmly, offering reassurance as the child's eyes widened in amazement. Daniel captured the interaction in a series of photographs, feeling a surge of emotion. It was a perfect example of how ceremonies could bridge generations, teaching young minds about respect, trust, and the beauty of tradition. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the parade reached its most solemn portion. A group of veterans, many older and some using walking aids, formed a line near the center of the square. They carried wreaths and small flags, their faces reflecting memories of comrades long gone. Daniel noticed the quiet dignity in their movements, the way they stood tall despite physical challenges, the careful placement of each wreath, and the deep respect with which they carried themselves. This segment of the parade was not about spectacle. It was about remembrance, and it resonated powerfully with every spectator. Daniel reflected on the personal stories behind each veteran. He imagined the countless battles, missions, and experiences they had endured. He thought about the friendships forged under difficult circumstances and the loss of comrades that would forever shape their lives. It was humbling to witness such resilience and courage firsthand. He realized that the parade was not just a ceremonial tradition. It was a living tribute to human endurance, sacrifice, and the strength of character that defines those who serve. The crowd responded with quiet reverence, some bowing their heads, others standing with hands over hearts. Daniel observed a young man in military uniform, perhaps a cadet, who watched intently, clearly learning from the veteran's example. He understood that these moments were educational as well as commemorative, shaping the values and understanding of future generations. Daniel felt inspired by this continuity, the way respect for the past was passed down, ensuring that the sacrifices of earlier generations would not be forgotten. As the parade progressed, Daniel noticed a subtle change in the energy around him. The precision and rhythm remained, but there was an added layer of emotion, a sense that the ceremony was reaching its turning point. The soldiers' movements became slightly slower, more deliberate, and the drumbeats echoed with increased solemnity. The veterans' faces reflected deeper reflection, and the spectators seemed more attentive, as if all were collectively acknowledging the gravity of the moment. A particularly moving scene unfolded when a veteran approached the crowd and offered a handshake to an elderly man in uniform from another country. The two men exchanged nods and smiles, and Daniel could see the pride and respect in their eyes. This gesture, though small, symbolized the enduring bonds formed through shared history, sacrifice, and commitment to duty. It was a reminder that the parade was not merely about individual countries or uniforms, but about the universal values of courage, honor, and remembrance. The horses, always attentive, moved with increased poise, their heads held high, and their steps measured and controlled. Daniel noticed how they responded not only to their riders' commands, but also to the atmosphere around them. It was as if they sensed the emotion in the square, contributing to the ceremony with a quiet elegance that matched the human participants. The harmony between man and animal, past and present, created a spectacle that was both majestic and deeply human. Daniel continued to photograph the unfolding moments, but he also took the time to simply observe and reflect. The parade had become more than an event. It was a story of human connection, history, and respect. Each participant, from the youngest soldier to the oldest veteran, contributed to the narrative. Each movement, each salute, each gesture of kindness carried meaning. Daniel realized that this was the essence of the Belgian Cenotaph parade, not just the visual spectacle, but the emotional and historical resonance that touched everyone present. Time seemed to slow as the parade reached its peak. Daniel could see tears in the eyes of some spectators, smiles of pride on the faces of others, and quiet expressions of reflection among the veterans. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for being present, understanding that these moments of shared remembrance were rare and precious. The parade was not just a ceremony. It was a lesson in humility, courage, and the enduring importance of honoring those who came before. As the segment concluded, Daniel noticed the subtle ways in which the ceremony was designed to leave a lasting impression. Soldiers and horses returned to their positions with careful precision, ensuring that the transition to the next phase would be seamless. The veterans adjusted their formation, preparing for the next part of the commemoration. Daniel understood that every detail, no matter how small, was intentional, reinforcing the discipline, respect, and tradition that defined the parade. Finally, as the afternoon light began to soften, Daniel took a moment to step back and absorb the scene. The Horse Guards parade ground, filled with disciplined soldiers, proud veterans, attentive spectators, and majestic horses, was a living tableau of history. The Belgian Cenotaph parade had moved beyond spectacle. It had become a profound emotional experience, a bridge connecting past and present, and a reminder of the human stories that give meaning to tradition. Daniel felt a quiet thrill mixed with reverence. He had captured photographs, but more importantly, he had witnessed history in motion. The parade was a testament to dedication, courage, and the enduring power of remembrance. It had deepened his appreciation for the sacrifices of the past, the discipline of the present, and the lessons that could be passed to the future. Standing amidst the crowd, he felt privileged to be part of something larger than himself, a shared moment of honor, pride, and reflection that would remain etched in his memory forever. As the afternoon moved toward early evening, the Belgian Cenotaph parade at Horse Guards began to draw to its final stages. Daniel could feel a sense of closure in the air, yet the atmosphere remained electric with reverence and awe. The sun, now lower in the sky, cast long shadows across the square, highlighting the polished boots of soldiers, the gleaming coats of horses, and the fluttering flags. Every detail seemed more vivid in the warm light, as if the day itself was acknowledging the importance of the ceremony. Daniel stood at the edge of the parade, his camera ready, though he found himself pausing more often to simply take in the moment. He had spent hours photographing the parade, capturing the precision, pride, and emotion of each segment, but he realized that the real value lay in witnessing it fully with his own eyes. The veterans, soldiers, and spectators had all contributed to an atmosphere of shared respect and remembrance, and Daniel felt privileged to be part of it. The final portion of the parade was designed to honor the fallen and pay tribute to those who had served. Veterans carried wreaths, carefully positioning them at the foot of the cenotaph. Each placement was deliberate and filled with meaning, a silent acknowledgement of comrades lost in wars past. Daniel observed how even the smallest movements, adjusting a wreath, straightening a flag, a subtle nod of the head, conveyed deep respect. It struck him that ceremonies like this were not about grandeur alone, but about conveying emotions that words often fail to express. A hush fell over the crowd as the last group of veterans and soldiers approached the cenotaph. Daniel could feel the collective emotion in the square, the way hundreds of people shared a single, silent moment of reflection. Some spectators bowed their heads, others stood stiffly with hands over hearts, and a few discreetly wiped tears from their eyes. It was a moving reminder that memory and history are not abstract concepts. They are living experiences, carried in the hearts of individuals who understand their significance. Daniel focused on a particular veteran, an older man wearing a uniform adorned with medals that gleamed in the fading sunlight. His hands trembled slightly as he placed a wreath at the cenotaph, yet his expression remained dignified. Daniel could sense the memories and emotions flowing through him, memories of fallen comrades, of sacrifices made, and of duty fulfilled. The veteran's quiet strength left a lasting impression on Daniel, who felt that he was witnessing a profound lesson in courage and resilience. As the final notes of the bugle echoed through the square, a wave of emotion swept over the crowd. The soldiers stood tall and still, their posture unwavering. The horses, sensing the solemnity of the moment, lowered their heads slightly, their breaths visible in the cool air. The entire scene felt almost sacred, a convergence of history, tradition, and human emotion that transcended the ordinary. Daniel captured this moment, understanding that it was the culmination of everything he had observed throughout the day. The Belgian flag, carried proudly at the forefront, seemed to glow in the soft sunlight. Its vibrant colors stood as a symbol of national pride, of shared history, and of the enduring respect between nations. Daniel noted how the flag moved gently in the breeze, as if participating in the ceremony itself. He thought about the countless stories that the flag represented, the soldiers who had marched under it, the veterans who had defended it, and the civilians who had supported those efforts. In that moment, he felt a deep connection to the broader narrative of courage, sacrifice, and unity. The crowd remained quiet as the parade slowly began to disperse. Families lingered, talking softly about what they had witnessed. Children pointed out their favorite moments, from the prancing horses to the precise movements of the soldiers. Veterans continued to walk along the barriers, exchanging nods and quiet words with spectators. Daniel observed that even as the formal ceremony ended, the emotional resonance remained. The parade had not only commemorated the past, it had inspired reflection, respect, and appreciation in everyone present. As he walked along the edge of the parade ground, Daniel noticed a small group of veterans sharing stories among themselves. They laughed quietly, reminiscing about old memories, yet their conversation carried an underlying tone of solemnity. Daniel realized that these personal connections, formed over decades of service and shared experience, were as important as the formal ceremony. The parade had brought together not just nations, but generations, highlighting the human stories that make history meaningful. Daniel paused to watch a young soldier approach a veteran, offering a handshake and a few words of gratitude. The veteran smiled, his eyes glistening with emotion. This simple gesture spoke volumes about the continuity of respect and the passing of values from one generation to the next. Daniel understood that the parade was as much about the future as it was about the past, teaching younger soldiers, children, and spectators the importance of honor, courage, and remembrance. The horses, now calmer but still majestic, were led by their riders toward the stables. Their disciplined movements reflected both training and care, and Daniel noted the quiet interactions between horse and rider. A soldier gently patted the neck of a horse, whispering words of reassurance. The bond between human and animal was evident, a reminder that even in a formal ceremony, compassion and connection were essential. Daniel felt inspired by the mutual respect and trust displayed, understanding that every element of the parade contributed to its emotional impact. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, Daniel remained behind, wanting to absorb every remaining moment. The grandeur of the ceremony, the dedication of the soldiers, and the courage of the veterans had left a lasting impression. He reflected on the significance of witnessing such an event firsthand, realizing that photographs could capture appearances, but only personal experience could capture the full emotional weight. Each step, each gesture, and each glance had contributed to a story that was both personal and universal. Daniel's thoughts returned to the Belgian Cenotaph, the solemn monument at the center of the parade. He considered the countless lives commemorated there, each name representing bravery, sacrifice, and devotion. He imagined the families, friends, and communities affected by these losses and felt a profound sense of gratitude for their service. The parade had transformed the square into a living testament to human courage, and Daniel felt honored to have been part of it. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across Horse Guard's parade, Daniel took one last look around. The square, once filled with the synchronized movements of soldiers and horses, now seemed peaceful and reflective. The echoes of drums and bugles had faded, leaving only the quiet hum of conversation and the distant sounds of the city. Yet the energy and emotion of the parade lingered in the air, a reminder that history, honor, and remembrance never truly end. They live on in memory and in shared experience. Daniel adjusted his camera one final time, capturing a wide shot of the parade ground. The composition included veterans walking slowly toward the exit, soldiers leading their horses, and spectators lingering in respectful reflection. In that single frame, he could see the culmination of hours of preparation, dedication, and emotion. It was more than a photograph. It was a story of courage, pride, and the enduring power of tradition. As he packed away his camera, Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The parade had been more than he had imagined. It had been an emotional journey, an education in history, and a lesson in humanity. He reflected on the soldiers' discipline, the veterans' pride, the horses' grace, and the crowd's reverence. Each element had contributed to a shared moment of significance that he would carry with him forever. Before leaving the square, Daniel took a moment to approach one of the Belgian veterans. He thanked him quietly, expressing gratitude for the opportunity to witness the parade. The veteran nodded, his expression warm and approving. In that brief interaction, Daniel felt the connection between generations and nations, understanding that respect and remembrance are communicated not only through ceremonies, but also through human interaction. As Daniel walked away from Horse Guard's parade, he felt inspired. The Belgian Cenotaph parade had not only honored the past, but had also left a lasting impression on the present. He thought about the lessons he had learned, the importance of discipline, the value of teamwork, the courage required to face adversity, and the need to remember and honor those who have sacrificed for others. He knew that these lessons would stay with him long after the photographs were printed, long after the memories of that day had settled into his mind. Walking through the streets of London, Daniel reflected on how history connects people across time and space. He realized that the parade had demonstrated the strength of human values: courage, honor, respect, and unity. These values, embodied by soldiers, veterans, and even the attentive spectators, were timeless and universal. The parade had been a vivid reminder that traditions, when carried out with sincerity and dedication, can teach lessons that last a lifetime. Before leaving the area entirely, Daniel turned for one last glance at Horse Guard's parade. The sun had begun to set, casting a golden glow over the buildings and the empty square. Flags still fluttered gently in the evening breeze, and the faint sound of hooves could be heard from the stables as the last horses were guided inside. Daniel smiled, feeling a profound sense of gratitude and inspiration. The day had been a journey through history, emotion, and human connection, and he knew that he would remember it forever. As he continued toward his hotel, Daniel reflected on the power of shared experiences. The parade had been about more than precision, uniforms, or ceremonies. It had been about people, their stories, and the values that connect us all. He thought about the veterans who had inspired him, the soldiers who had demonstrated unwavering dedication, and the spectators who had witnessed and appreciated it all. In that moment, Daniel understood that the Belgian Cenotaph parade was not just a commemoration. It was a living testament to human courage, memory, and unity. By the time he returned to his hotel, the memories of the parade were fresh in his mind. He looked through the photographs he had taken, each one telling a part of the story: the precision of the soldiers, the grace of the horses, the pride of the veterans, and the awe of the spectators. Daniel realized that while the parade had ended, its lessons and emotions would continue to resonate. It had been an unforgettable experience, one that had enriched his understanding of history, humanity, and the enduring power of respect and remembrance. And so the day concluded not with a simple end, but with a sense of fulfillment, reflection, and inspiration. Daniel had witnessed history, connected with stories of courage and sacrifice, and experienced the deep emotions that only a true commemoration can evoke. The Belgian Cenotaph parade at Horse Guards had left an indelible mark on him, a reminder that the past lives on in the present, and that honoring it is both a privilege and a responsibility.